How great was it? What was the most, I don't know, noteworthy takeaway for you from that piece?
Yeah, there were a few things. I thought I appreciated his taking ownership. He kind of did it in defense of Missoula, but it was when he said, "Hey, he's not the one who missed any free throws or threw the ball away or anything like that. It comes back to us."
Celtics Beat is brought to you by Fanduel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome on in. New Celtics Beat. Good to be back with you. I missed last week's show. Evan Valenti, though, we held it down. I am Adam Kaufman. We are here with Keith Smith, good friend of the program from Spot Track. Keith, how are you, bud?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
So, obviously, there are Celtics and NBA thoughts that we have. This is, after all, a Celtics and NBA podcast. But I have to, I'd be remiss, guys, if I didn't begin just by saying, thank goodness football's back. As we sit here right now, it is the day, it is the very beginning of week one, of course, a couple days away from the Patriots, the team that we care about, taking the field against the defending NFC champion Eagles. But Kansas City, Detroit, maybe by the time you listen to this podcast, that game is already over. So it's not like we're going to sit here and preview it, but it's just nice to have NFL football back that matters, that counts, wins, losses, that we actually give a damn about. College returned a couple weeks ago, so we are full on into the fall football swing, guys. I can smell the tailgates, Keith. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't want to rain on the parade here, but I have DirecTV.
Who cares? Has basketball started yet?
That's kind of where I'm at all the time, always, right, from late June forward. But I have DirecTV, and they don't have the Sunday ticket package anymore. So I'm gonna have to find ways, creative ways to find Patriots games when they're not on TV. Thankfully, they're on TV plenty, so I should still be able to see them without going to any kind of extreme measures. But yeah, I'm a little bummed out because I don't have the Sunday ticket package, which I've had since 2003. I think I got like a very early adopter and all that. And I was very big on the Game Mix channel where you could watch up to 8 games at once and all that stuff. But yeah, my excitement's tempered a bit because I have to find ways to watch the Pats this year. But I'll figure it out by the time it all matters.
Look, with our discount code, you can get $100 off YouTube TV.
I saw that.
So I'm just saying, just gonna throw it out there. FanDuel's got us covered, Kaufman. So, but to make this somewhat basketball related, the reason why it's amazing that football is here is because the next month is gonna fly by. Because I again, like Keith, I'm very just waiting for basketball to start. And the next month is going to make life go so much faster. So I'm very, very appreciative of the NFL and college football.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, we're going to kind of blink and it's going to be January, February. It's just the way it works once you get into the football schedule with games, between college and pro, if you watch both games basically every single day of the week. So it absolutely flies by. But yeah, as noted, basketball's right around the corner. Next month at this point in time, we're going to be talking about real games, actual games, even sooner than that, obviously preseason games and the start of training camp. And so it's coming fast. And I know a lot of people have been, this is kind of the like basketball porn time of the year, right? This is the ramp up to training camp is when people are, it's pretty much the equivalent of that first media day and everyone's in the best shape of their lives, and or baseball spring training when we're always hearing that. With basketball, it's you'll get all those fluff interviews obviously when media day arrives, but right now you have kind of the ramp up to that, articles being written where every guy is saying everything you could possibly hope to hear, and everyone's feeling good. Nobody has the injuries unless heaven forbid you suffered them in the FIBA tournament. And everyone is just the promise of greatness, and all of the top tier teams are true contenders and all. But I ramble on and on to lead into this. Jayson Tatum is just the latest, and I don't say that in any sort of critical way. I say it really in a celebratory way. He's out there. We're seeing video of him working out with Paul Pierce, which of course gets everybody excited. Jeff Goodman, if anyone missed it, just earlier today or yesterday, came out with a piece, I think it was today, on the Messenger, where he's writing now, and just a very thorough Q&A with Tatum about kind of his place in the NBA, his pursuit of basketball immortality and being on the Celtics Mount Rushmore, obviously the money in the league, the contract that Jaylen Brown got, Marcus Smart's departure, the coaching change from Udoka to Mazzulla. I mean, he basically hit on everything, raising a young son in Boston. Now he doesn't want to go anywhere. And I'll give you some of the specific quotes, but I know, guys, we've all read this article. Keith, let's start with you here. Just how great was it? What was the most, I don't know, noteworthy takeaway for you from that piece?
Yeah, there were a few things. I thought I appreciated his taking ownership. He kind of did it in defense of Mazzulla, but it was when he said, "Hey, he's not the one who missed any free throws or threw the ball away or anything like that. It comes back to us and in executing." I think he took ownership of saying he and Jaylen Brown talk a lot about how they know they want to put up banner 18. It has to start with them, and they're kind of the guys who are going to have to lead the way. It was really cool to hear kind of just his thoughts on Boston as a city. We know it's been a little rough for Boston and some of their athletes in recent times. And Jayson Tatum basically talked about how he showed up as a 19-year-old kid and was like, whatever, I'm from St. Louis. Like, this is just kind of where I work, I guess. And I'm paraphrasing. But then he's like, now it feels like this is home. And I feel a connection to the city, and his son is growing up there and all those things. So I think if you're a Celtics fan, you read this and you're flying high today, because you're like, man, this guy just kind of gets it. He's said everything you want to hear. And you're right. I mean, that's what happens at this time of year. And I've seen some of the response being, great, cool, you say all this, show it, show it on the floor, prove it. And there's always going to be people like that. But overall, great interview for him to, basically say, hey, Boston's home now. I want to be here. And also to recognize, if I want to be an all-time great and an all-time great Celtic, the only way to get there is to win. Like, it doesn't matter what I do, accolades wise, what records I set. If I don't win a championship, I'm never going to be at that level.
Yeah, I think the not wanting to leave Boston stuff, for me personally is huge, because again, you have the Giannis particular portion of this offseason kind of looming over everything, his upcoming extension, and how he's not going to hang around if they don't put a winning team around him. And that's the first time we've kind of heard Giannis even remotely address anything close to leaving Milwaukee. And look, Tatum is the top 5, top 7. I mean, you name the number in the 10, one of those guys. He's one of the cornerstones of the NBA at 25 years old, and he's going to be a very good player for a very long time, pending just devastating injuries. Okay. And it's, if you're any team in the NBA, you're dying of the chance to draft someone like Jayson Tatum and have him for 2 to 3 contracts. And it seems like so far throughout the career of Tatum, Boston has done nothing but embrace him, make him feel comfortable, make life easier for him. They've put a winning team around Jayson Tatum since he got there. Tatum has just been in the playoffs every single year, making deep runs year in and year out. There's never been an excuse of like, they haven't really, this team doesn't really win enough, whatever. They've made life great for him. And in this particular day and age of coddling the superstars, because that's where we're at, Boston's done a great job with their very own. Now, again, Jaylen's had a little bit of more of a difficult time, and I like that Tatum spoke about the contract and was like, this is great. I'm thrilled. It was a no-brainer, et cetera, et cetera. So that Tatum and Brown, as much as people want to break them up, again, those two guys, I think, want to stay together. So there's a bunch of stuff in this article. There's a lot, and Jeff and Tatum go back, I think, to high school. Jeff's been talking about Tatum forever. He was really early on the Jayson Tatum is the best player in this draft train. I know that I worked with Jeff for a while when he was working with us at CLNS, and now the Field of 68. I was his producer for a while, and he's been all Jayson Tatum all the time. So it was a perfect interview for him. But I mean, Tatum gave you every single quote you wanted to hear, and especially about his leadership style, right? He talked about, like, I'm not Kevin Garnett. I'm never going to be Kevin Garnett. That's not my style, but don't think I'm not trying to lead this team to banner 18. It's just, I'm doing it my own way. And we, as a fan base, as a media in general, and just people that watch the game, I don't think us three in particular, but other people need to be more accepting of the fact that he's not just like the rah KG doing push-ups, knuckle push-ups on the ground, slamming his head into the stanchion. He does it a little differently, and he's been very successful doing it.
So I want to pick up on that. That's exactly where I wanted to go next. I want to read the quote from Tatum in this Goodman article. Again, it says, "I'm never going to be Kevin Garnett. As much as people want me to be, that's not who I am. The way I lead, the public may not ever see what I do. When I need to, I make sure my voice is heard, and I do it in my own way. I'm not going to be out there jumping up and down screaming. That's just not my personality. As much as people want to talk about it and want me to be that, I'm not changing who I am. I lead in my own way, and when I talk, everybody in that organization is going to listen, and whatever I say is always for the betterment of the team, and my teammates know that." Again, he's been asked to talk about this, Keith, for years, time and time again, by various media, different articles, different podcasts. It's a theme. It continually comes up. But the big difference between all of those times before and now is, I would argue, like we have fun with the whole heart and soul thing, but Marcus Smart, I think, really was the de facto captain, obviously, who was the longest tenured member of the team. He was this team's leader. He was this team's, the guy that was going to yell and shout and be that vocal guy. Now, does that always make you the true leader just because you're the loudest guy in the room? Not necessarily, but I do think Marcus Smart, more often than not, was considered both internally and externally the leader of that team. He's gone now. So this is more than ever, Evan and I have talked about it, Tatum and Brown's team. Is Tatum prepared to lead in, he doesn't forget us. He doesn't need to do anything for us, fans, media, outsiders within that room. Does he have a leadership style, you think, that does resonate with everybody else that need to listen to him?
I think so. I think what we're going to find out with this team is, do you need that in your face leader or not? Because you mentioned Marcus. I would say the second guy on the roster who would do that is Grant Williams, and he's no longer there either. It's, I always likened it to, those are the two guys, along with when he was there, Ime Udoka. They'd scream and yell at you and make you feel bad. And then Al Horford would put his arms around your shoulder and be like, all right, let's move on. Let's go, and just kind of get it moving. And I think Tatum probably falls more towards the Horford side of things. We know Derek White's kind of a quiet leader. Jaylen Brown can be loud, but I tend to think that's more towards himself than it has ever been towards anybody else. So we're going to see, is there somebody on the roster who will, if the need arises, kind of get in somebody's face? And do you even need that, right? Those are the other things we're going to find out, is can you get through? Like, I don't know, maybe somebody is that guy on the Denver Nuggets, but I don't know who the guy on the Nuggets is that was screaming and yelling in teammates' faces either. It seems like they were all a little bit more of, hey, let's do what we're supposed to do. But that's a long way of saying, I think with Tatum, you're right. We're never going to see it. Like, it's never going to be on the court where he, is grabbing somebody's jersey and screaming and yelling at him. We're never going to see, that, even the moments when the media is allowed in at the end of a practice and those kind of things. Maybe stories will trickle out, but I think he's going to be more of the kind of guy who's going to be like, all right, here's what we got to do, and kind of sit everybody down and let's talk through this and kind of go through it in a way where it is, hey, but I think it's more than a just let's build everybody up. I think it's going to be in a I'm holding people accountable kind of way. And it's almost kind of like, I look at it as when we were kids, right? You almost wanted, if you knew you screwed up, you wanted your parents to scream and yell at you. And it was way worse when they were like, I'm just disappointed in you.
Yeah, I'm
and
not
here's
mad.
what
I'm
we
just
should have done.
disappointed.
Yeah, like that hurts so much worse, than if they yelled at you. So I think that's the kind of guy Tatum is. I think he's probably more the kind of leader who is like, all right, I'm a little disappointed. I'm not happy. Here's what we got to do.
I guess my concern, Keith, would be, and I don't know how this plays out, and I may never know, because it would have to be written about by, it's that behind closed doors kind of thing. And I'm not even saying it needs to be Tatum. It just needs to be somebody who every once in a while, who isn't the coach, is going to raise his voice in that room. I just think you can only have so many, and it doesn't need to be on a daily basis like it felt like maybe it was from Marcus or even from Grant. You just can only have, I think, within a team, and all this expertise that I have, I just think you can only have so many lead by example guys. You know, you need to have someone that when the going gets tough, and I don't mean a 5-game skid, it could be, you know, at halftime of a game, a particular game, where somebody is going to raise their voice and get everyone's attention and provide that sort of, you know, for lack of a better way of putting it, that fire up moment, that spark. It doesn't need to be a rah-rah speech, but it's got to be something that just like gets everybody's blood boiling a little bit. And I don't know who that guy is on this roster. And it does sort of feel like if it is going to be Tatum, it's going to be very, very infrequent. And that's fine. If he only raises his voice 3 times a year, people are sure as hell going to listen when it happens. But it's got to be somebody, right?
I think so. I'm with you on that. I generally think, someone needs to be that guy, and we'll see. Maybe that develops into somebody, and maybe that's where it goes. But yeah, I think it's team chemistry is always a very it's like a balancing act, right? It's like you put too much chlorine in your pool, and you're in trouble with that, and everybody's eyes hurt. You don't put enough in, and your pool's gross. And I think it's you're constantly kind of tweaking and adjusting and trying to figure out the right mix. And I think with and the dog just popped their head in here. I think you gotta go into those things where you got to figure that stuff out, because to your point, yeah, if everybody's just the kind of quiet leader, then it's like, who's going to fire these guys up? Who's going to get them going? Especially on that night where Tatum's shot isn't falling and he's not able to kind of get himself going. Who's going to get everybody fired up? And on the flip side, if you have too many guys who want to scream and yell all the time, we know that never goes well, right? That's when it's like, God, would you just shut up and just play kind of stuff? And that's going to be interesting. I'll also say too, a very underrated loss, I think, in that locker room is going to be Blake Griffin if he does not return, which all indications are he's probably not going to. So I think that's another loss that they're going to have, because he's another guy who he'd been around for a long time. He wasn't afraid to get loud, and much like Grant wasn't afraid to all right, hey, let's I'm going to crack jokes. Let's be funny. And, I'll kind of be the butt of the jokes for the team for that. And, I think they're going to miss that with Grant too. Grant's the guy they could all kind of pick on if they wanted to. And they did plenty. And he, took it good naturedly and those kind of things. So yeah, their chemistry is going to be interesting to watch develop throughout the course of this year.
Yeah. I just think sometimes when it comes to being a leader, your play on the court can mean more than your actual voice in the locker room. Whereas like Tatum, is he going to yell and scream at people? No, maybe that's going to be more Jaylen Brown, or maybe that's going to be Sam Cassell, or, somebody on the bench. But I think, when they need a spark, it's going to be Tatum demanding the ball and going to the basket, going to the free throw line, or whatever he's trying to do. And I think Tatum is more than capable of doing something like that. So I think when we talk about leadership, we often think about the guy in the locker room who's trying to fire everybody up. We don't have access to that stuff, so we have no clue what Tatum's like in the locker room. Every once in a while, you get a great clip from the Celtics media relations people of, Joe coming in, giving a post-game speech, something really quick, or, you'll see guys interacting. And sometimes you get a little bit of a sense of like the locker room hierarchy. But I do think the one thing that we are missing is the on-court stuff that Tatum can do to lead a team. That's going to be really important. And I would argue that's more important than the stuff that he says in the locker room, because sometimes when you need a guy to go on a run in a game, Tatum's as good as anybody at creating a run by himself. And yeah, he's not going to have his shot's not going to fall all the time, but more often than not, it's going to. And again, he's going to be a guy that can pick the team up just by hitting baskets, playing good defense, getting rebounds, pushing the basketball, getting guys involved. Like that's just as impactful to me of being a leader than the stuff that you say. And I think Tatum is, again, more than capable of doing that kind of stuff on both ends of the floor to get a team motivated.
Football season is about to kick off, and Fanduel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. I wonder how many people are going to bet on the Patriots. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/Boston.
Keith, I'll tell you what, I would not know how to bet on Blake Griffin. You brought him up before, and obviously the Celtics do have some open roster spots at the end of that bench. We are talking back end of the bench guys, veteran minimum type guys. There have been, smaller moves obviously made, nothing monumental. As far as Blake goes, how would you handicap this? Because correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like because he has just been on and on and on about how much he loves Boston. It seems like either a return to the Celtics, where there reportedly is interest from the team, or it's retirement, right? Or taking a year off anyway. It's not him going somewhere else.
Yeah, what I was told was throughout the course of last season, he loved his time in Boston, which he openly said. He likes the guys, he liked the city, he enjoyed his time there. But I was also told he really missed his family, which I believe all pretty much remained out on the West Coast. And I think that's probably the tug he's feeling at this point is, if one of the West Coast teams really wants to have him, maybe he plays there. But I'm sure it's one of those things where it's the beginning part of September. I don't really need to make a decision today, right? Like I can kind of come in a little later if it's man, it's everybody's back in camp and I'm seeing these preseason games and I really want to play. Maybe Boston still has an open roster spot and says, hey, come on back. We'll keep it open, and go. Now they're not going to keep it open indefinitely. At some point they'll fill it and they'll move on in a different direction. But that's kind of what I wonder if that's where we're at with Blake. Are we in a spot where it's, I'm just going to wait and see, how I'm feeling and go from there. And that's been, I think, the reporting from others recently has been kind of akin to that. Is he just is, we're isn't sure what he wants to do right now and not sure that he really wants to, maybe even play again, which is also fair too at this point in his career. But I'll say, yeah, I mentioned, veteran leadership, but he actually was an on-court contributor for the Celtics quite often. And, especially in times when I don't think they really expected him to be, especially, early in the year when Rob was out and then Al was having, being load managed, wasn't playing back-to-backs. It was more often than not Blake Griffin who got the call there. And then he became kind of Joe Mazzulla's, I need somebody to go in and hit the deck and get a loose ball and, make a play, get the crowd fired up. He kind of became the guy that Joe Mazzulla called on for that. So that's another thing that they need to replace. And if you look at the roster, at least in my opinion, they're still a big short. Like they need one more big, even if it is a break glass kind of guy at the end of the bench. I do think they do need, to add one more big to kind of round out this roster.
Is he a loss if they don't bring him back? I know he's not someone that, betting perspective, he doesn't move the needle in terms of the team's win total or anything like that. But in terms of culture off the court, like you said, sort of that break glass in case of emergency guy on the floor, the fact that they are a little bit thin at big when you consider that Porzingis is going to miss time, Horford's going to be load managed, Rob's inevitably going to get hurt at some point. There are going to be guys that, they're going to have to rely on there in the middle, and they don't have a lot of options. If they can't bring Blake Griffin back, is that a problem?
Yeah, I mean, potentially, I think there is a chance that kind of becomes an issue. Now, if you could tell me, I looked into my crystal ball, and Rob, Allen, Porzingis, they're all going to play 60 to 70 games, and they're all going to be healthy at the end of the season, I'd probably say it's fine, right? But what I try to tell people is, we get to a point where it's Christmas or New Year's, and Luke Cornett's having to play 25 minutes a night. It's probably not great. If Luke Cornett is your fifth big and you're just throwing him out there when you need him, that's awesome. He's very good in that role. I think you're fine. But if it is, he's a nightly 25-minute a night guy, that's not good. Now, you're not getting somebody else great at this point in the offseason. It's just not going to happen. There just isn't that player left. And it's highly unlikely the Celtics are going to jump in, on any kind of major trade that's going to deliver a player like that. But if you do go into a point where you looked at it and said, all right, you know what, we could kind of get to, this guy to come in and be at least, another option, whether it would be Blake Griffin or somebody else, that's good. But chances of them being as good as Blake Griffin was in that role last year, probably pretty slim. I'd say, very small chance that they're as good as Blake was in that role when you factor in both the on and the off the court stuff that he brought to the team. So yeah, I that's a long way of saying, yeah, I think it is a loss.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, we've talked about it ad nauseum, the issues that Boston's front court has in terms of their health.
Potential issues. They're not there yet.
We've done it enough. I will say though that the blip that Himmelsbach had in one of his most recent pieces about it didn't seem like that there was going to be a reunion between Blake and the Celtics made me sad. Just going to be honest. I loved him. I think he's. I mean, Kaufman, you've worked around baseball teams before. You know how long a season can be when it comes to baseball. Like having a guy like a Kike Hernandez is really, really important to try and just break up the monotony of every single day. I think Blake does that, the same thing for the Celtics or whatever team he's going to be on. Like the Bus One boys, I got to be honest with you, probably was started with an idea of Blake Griffin of like trying to, like, hey man, like, yeah, we might not be like the best players on this team, but at the same time, we have a job, we have a role. Let's embrace it. Let's make T-shirts. Let's make this a viral thing. Let's have NBC Sports Boston do an article about the Bus One boys. Like that's valuable to make everybody else on the team, the guys that are 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, feel like they're a part of something because oftentimes they're not doing a lot. I always love watching Malik Fitz on the bench just go nuts when things are going well. Like you need guys like that. And Blake definitely does that. Again, I don't know about the family dynamic. No clue there. Totally understand it. Totally get it. And if that's a real big priority for him, which it sounds like it is, I wouldn't be mad at him. But like, I loved having Blake on the team. I think everybody did. So, this is us maybe begging Blake to come back, and it would be great to have you back because he's and the minutes, the minutes were good. And it was almost surprising when he would play and he's like diving on the floor for loose balls. He's hitting threes. He's tipping out offensive rebounds. I remember there was one stretch. He had like 2 or 3 offensive rebounds in a row and the crowd was going bananas for Blake. It was amazing. So I think he has a nice home with the Celtics in terms of everybody likes him. He doesn't have to get to know new teammates. He knows mostly everybody already. So it's a positive from a continuity standpoint. It's positive for a lot of things. Just has to be right for Blake, and I hope it is.
So yeah, I'll put my hand up real. Sorry, just to say, the comment I made when he signed was like, if this matters, it's probably bad for Boston, and I was completely wrong. I mean, he ended up being a key contributor to a team that, I know people have their feelings about the way last season went, but they were a very good team. By the end of the year, they were a game away from going back to the finals, and who knows what would have happened if they'd made it back. But and Blake was a big part of that. So I was completely wrong on that one. And to your point, yeah, I mean, keeping everybody engaged, all, as coaches will talk about all the time, we need they used to say all 15 guys, and it went to 17. Now it'll be 18 with the two-way addition, the third one, and the two-way guys. It'll be getting all 18 guys, pulling the rope in the same direction. That we're all working together the same way. Like that is something that I think matters, and he's a big part of that, or was last year. So yeah, he's definitely going to be missed for sure.
So maybe Blake returns, maybe he doesn't. We know obviously there was the recent signing of Svi Mikhailuk, he's been around a handful of years. He's a journeyman. He's a nice depth addition, I think, but you're not asking a whole lot of him. He's also not a big, he's a wing. But Keith, in terms of in your reporting with these remaining open roster spots and guys that are out there trickling around, any logical fits that you're waiting on here, a TJ Warren or somebody like that?
Yeah, I mean, we got those reports that they were bringing in a number of different wing options, bigger wings. In there, TJ Warren was one, Lamar Stevens was another.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are all 3-4 type players more than the traditional 2-3 type wings, but that fits because that's often, I think Boston has coverage at the big spots, when the guys are there. And I think they were wing short. Adding Svi Mikhailuk, that's fine. I have no problem with that addition at all. I think he's kind of duplicative with what Sam Hauser brings. But if you're going to have too much of anything, have too much shooting, that's just I feel like you can always put one of those guys on the floor, and the rest of the guys there will be able to cover for that guy defensively. And we saw last year with Sam Hauser, maybe he doesn't really need covered as much defensively as at least we thought he might need. So we'll see kind of where that goes. That last spot, like I said, I'd be looking for more of a true big to come in there. The issue is we're down to it now in free agency. There's really nobody that you're looking for. And I think one of the things that was suggested was maybe they just kind of bring in camp guys for now and then see who gets cut, who shakes loose here towards the end of camp, and maybe they go snap one of those guys up. If somebody that they're like, wow, I actually kind of really like that guy and think he can play a role, you grab that guy at the end of it. Almost more of an NFL type approach to the way you build your roster, where that's you don't generally see a lot of that in the NBA, but every once in a while you'll come up with somebody pops free that you get. So that's where I'd be going. But if you want to add TJ Warren, fine. I think. Again, I was wrong last year about Blake Griffin, but you're talking about your 15th man here. You're probably hoping that guy's not factoring in too big on the floor over the course of the season. So but let's kind of see. And I guess I'm kind of taking the approach of I just assume Brad will get it right, for the coaching staff and the rest of the roster, and he'll find somebody who can come in there and contribute when called upon, even if it's very rarely.
Well, the waiting game continues, guys. Training camp is coming, obviously. Preseason games are coming. Roster moves may or may not be coming. Eventually, basketball will return in a way that actually counts, which is nice. We have it with football, as we talked about earlier, and soon enough, the NBA will be back with all of us and in our hearts as well. But it's just good to see this team is pretty much, obviously it wasn't a what's the best way to put it? It wasn't a turbulent off season. There wasn't a whole lot of drama as compared to maybe some off seasons. Naturally, as we know, there was a big trade. There was movement with Porzingis coming in, Smart going out, most notably, and as Keith said before, Grant Williams going as well. So it's going to look just a little bit different, but still obviously a team with serious contending potential and among the favorites to win the upcoming championship. And when anytime you have a team in your city that you get to talk about that way, it just makes for makes for a much easier experience, Keith. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot better to be talking about do we have enough to win a title than well, I hope this guy kind of plays good in a rebuilding year and maybe we've got something for the future. I mean, those years generally are fun, but in a completely different way after a period of success. The Celtics are still, I would say at the beginning parts of their, period of success just because of the age of the two stars on the team and Tatum and Brown. This is going to be stretch out this window of contention for quite some time. And it's just up to Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla to find and develop and play the right guys around them and kind of continue to maximize them. I go back to something Brad said, I think it was at Ime Udoka's in the introductory press conference, but it holds true is Tatum and Brown are the pillars on the roster. Everything else is to support them. Right. Everything else that they're doing is to support and lift those two up. So, I'm very, very curious to see how it goes. And I think it was time in this team's arc to do something big. Like let's see, let's try something different than what we've looked like before. And we're going to find out if it works here starting in about a month or so.
As always, we appreciate you checking out Celtics Beat. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. Rate, review, subscribe. Means a lot to us as well. We thank you for that. We will be back with you weekly, as we always are, maybe even more frequent than that, if we just have thoughts that we can't wait to get out to you. So for Keith Smith, again from Spot Track, from Evan Valenti, I am Adam Kaufman. Thanks for hanging out. We will talk to you again next week. Happy betting, too. See ya.
New FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV.